back. Thank you so much for joining me tonight or today or whatever time zone you're in. I just hope it's a convenient enough one. I know I can't please them all, but I hope 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and however else it goes for the rest of the world is a time where you can maybe join me live. And if not, then there are always the reruns. So tonight's topic, life after narcissistic abuse. Well, it depends. It really depends. If you didn't learn anything after narcissistic abuse, if you didn't do anything to check in with yourself and figure out what were your vulnerabilities that got you involved in the first place, I'm afraid to say that life after narcissistic abuse is just a waiting zone for more narcissistic abuse. So when shall we learn? Remember that song, when will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Well, we don't learn sometimes by mistakes because unconscious mistakes are difficult to learn from because they're unconscious, right? So how can we learn something from our unconscious when we're not conscious about it? And that is why I designed this mind map, and that is why I created a pathway to healing so that we could take the unconscious and lift it up, expose the darkness so that you now no longer have to be a sucker for your wounds from the wounds of your past. So let's take out this mind map, which is a pathway I created to heal from childhood wounds, particularly narcissistic wounds, and let's go over the whole thing. So look at the first 3 rows. They represent your past, your wounds of childhood, how you reacted to them, and what you encoded in there. What wounds do I talk about? Mostly wounds of verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional neglect, controlling, smothering. Narcissistic abuse, which is the wound of growing up with parents that are apathetic and they don't put your needs first, and then you end up being injured because you don't feel like you're important enough, lovable enough, good enough, pretty enough, smart enough, and all of those horrible core beliefs that then ruin your life. So especially if you've just come out of a narcissistic relationship, what you've just come out of is usually a re-injury of your childhood. So not only were you kicked in the butt in your childhood years, but now you enter the same gates of hell with a new relationship, whether it be a new love partner, husband, wife, boss, friend, anybody, and now you're finding yourself in the same what the Freud situation. And this is what's going to happen after narcissistic abuse unless you heal. I don't think people really get this. I think that they think that they can outsmart the system gone wrong. However, the system gone wrong is not what's out there. It's really what's in there that's attracting this kind of what the Freud situation, the repeat of pairing yourself with people who just don't have empathy, the repeat of pairing yourself with people who take advantage of your vulnerabilities, pairing yourself with people who just don't seem to want to add value to the relationship because in essence they're there to vampire you financially, vampire you sexually, vampire you emotionally, vampire your creativity. However they can take, that's what they like to do. And so life after a narcissistic relationship can be more of the same. And so I suggest that you don't wait for your next situation that you go inward instead of going outward for new people and new relationships. You go inward and heal the hole in your soul so that you close up the vulnerabilities, that you become conscious of why you pick who you pick, and you go really deep into a journey. So I'm going to continue along this yellow brick road of what I created here, the journey through the mind map. It's a from, through, to journey from the wounds of childhood, how you reacted, what you encoded there, and through dismantling this whole, what I call system gone wrong. So we track the chaos of what happened. We track all your defense mechanisms, including your people-pleasing defense mechanisms, which is a very common defense mechanisms empaths and vulnerable people use to try very hard to please even harder so that this kind of treatment won't happen to them. The problem is that if you try harder to please harder, you are attracting the people that want to be pleased, but may not be capable of pleasing themselves. So to hear how this is very infectious and circular and very destructive to your psyche, and everyone, this is a call-in show. So I invite you to call in, and I want you to have a better life after narcissistic abuse. It's just that I've seen for too many years with too many people that it doesn't get better until you get better. So there's no life after narcissistic abuse. Well, what are you doing internally? What are you doing to grow? What are you doing to heal yourself and wake up the shadows that obscure your vision of who you're picking and how you're picking and why you're picking? This is really the stuff that has to be addressed. So I hope to get some call-ins tonight. It's always more interesting to talk about who done it, what happened, why we're in the spin cycle, why we can't get out of what I call this double dungeon of darkness where you can't really get out because it's dark in there. Nobody to turn to because, in a sense, people get psychologically blinded. And what do when they're blind? They get back on the same track, no growth, no progress, same old, and just back into the system gone wrong. And that's why I describe panels 4, 5, 6 as the what the Freud. So if you could look at panel number 4, 5, 6, you'll see lots of chaos, you'll see lots of defenses, and then ultimately a breakdown. So the chaos, as you can see from the picture, which is worth 1,000 words in my opinion, the DNA strands, which is the family bonds, are broken, trust is broken, there's no direction, there's no north, south, east, west, everyone is just hurling into the ozone, there's a toxic environment in the background. The DNA structure is non-structured, so chaos, not structured. And then when we're in chaos, what we want to do is we want to defend against the chaos. So we create defense mechanisms. What are these defense mechanisms? Various ways to numb the pain, smoking, drugs, alcohol, overeating, sleeping, avoiding, playing on video games, anything, porn, anything to avoid the pain. And then these defense mechanisms don't really defend. They just keep you in a temporary, another kind of psychological prison, because now not only are you in a psychological prison of the situation, now you're trapped in a defense mechanism. So maybe you're now unfortunately addicted to alcohol or drugs, or eating too much and ruining your body, and your blood sugar levels are climbing high. So could you please understand and connect the dots that a system gone wrong is the outcome of not healing? So look at panel number 6. If you don't heal, there's no way you can keep the system going. So panel number 6 is the breakdown, breakthrough panel. And in therapy, we look forward to this panel, not because it's too much fun, but because it's an opportunity to break through. And thank you so much for calling in. Hi, what name would you like me to call you by? Hello? I think we have a call in. Yes?
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
And who am I talking to, please?
Dale from Washington.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
Hi, Dale. Can you hear me?
We've got a bad connection. Can I call back?
Yeah, call back. Absolutely. Dale is somebody that I've been talking to over the years, and I really appreciate his comments and insights. So I'll wait for Dale to call back, and please pay particular attention to his experience with his own healing journey, because he truly is a great role model for somebody who has done the work and did not allow for the infectious past to infect his phase 2 of his life. So hopefully, Dale, you'll be calling back, and let's pray for a better connection here, okay?
Yeah, it's working now.
Oh, awesome. Dale, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Life after narcissistic abuse, my main narcissist is no longer living, and but his legacy lives on through siblings, competitive siblings and sibling rivalry and sibling antagonism and golden child people, and it's just the chaos just keeps going, and it's never going away. It's gotten to the point where people aren't talking to each other, and it was funny. The narcissist said before they passed, "Well, you guys can all fight it out."
Wow.
and,
Speaking of dropping
I've heard that
the dirty laundry into everybody's lap, right? You guys handle it. Bye.
Yeah, well, and the flying monkeys are carrying on the tirade, and it's just a never-ending, and the only way you can get away from it is just to leave it.
So is this a parent of yours that passed?
Yes, and I just think that the seeds were planted, and the same children that were defending the parent through all of their shenanigans and all of their problems, were the ones that had no empathy. I mean, they developed into pretty much narcissist number 2 and 3, and always came to narcissist number 1's defense on every level, and now it's so it's the family is split, and it's gotten so chaotic that I've got a sister, a lost child sister, that just doesn't want to even be involved because it drives her to levels of anxiety, and she just says, I can't deal with it, so she's gone, even though she's not part of the problem. And then the narcissistic ones, the golden child and the hero child and stuff, who stayed on the narcissist side at all levels, they just continue the tirade. It's just ridiculous.
So let me ask you this. Who were you in the system? Were you the golden child? Were you the scapegoat? Were you the lost child? How do you see yourself?
Middle child. Let's see, we had a hero child. I don't know what the second child was. Kind of got away and escaped. Another golden child, and then a lost child. I think I was neutral. I kind of tried to. I was a peacekeeper, fixer, people pleaser.
Oh, people.
I was the guy trying to patch it all together and protect my mother from my father's narcissism. And the result, as I got older and became more defensive in that regard, became somewhat of a what was the one you used? The castaway or the whatever. But it was too strong to really be put into that level. My particular situation really wasn't where I was going to turn to drugs or alcohol or anything. I just got more defensive, I think, and stood up and stood my ground.
So I talked on other episodes about how narcissism is made, and the two ends of the spectrum that I usually talk about is children who are extremely spoiled and they wear the golden crown, versus children who are emotionally neglected, and both of them develop these narcissistic defenses or some kind of a people-pleasing type of defense. So with your siblings, do you think that they were overly spoiled and raised to be entitled, or were they totally neglected, or maybe a combination of the both?
With so many siblings, there's definitely a golden child who was spoiled completely, and being young was somewhat neglected because of where things were in life. But when they threw tantrums, they got whatever they wanted, and then they were gleeful about it and gloating about it, and the Cheshire grin. They were the ones that always tried to get other people in trouble, and even you come home and they accuse you of something that took place at the house, you didn't even know what it was, and all of a sudden you were in the doghouse because you were guilty without any proof of it, of something having, that the golden child did. Maybe they broke something of value or something like that. Oh, he did that. I don't know what you're talking about.
So I'm sure you notice that they're only golden when they're pleasing the parent, and then they lose the crown and the throne when they're not in service of their narcissistic parent. I'm sure you noticed that system in your family.
Well, they went full-blown narcissists. They're on multiple marriages by now. I mean, it's to sit back and understand what's happening. I didn't understand at the time. I didn't know anything about this, but now that I've learned it all, and I can sit back and observe and think back through history and then look through today, it's an interesting science. I mean, it's just I'm thankful to have learned what I've learned and been able to get beyond it and separate myself from it, because up till I did that, I couldn't separate myself from it. I was always trying to figure out, why is this such a chaotic situation and why does it have to be? And I never could understand it, but once I understand the science of what these dysfunctional families are, it made sense. It didn't take away the past hurt and all the pain and all the suffering that we went through, but it made sense, and it allowed you to get your power back to just move on and separate yourself from that. And that's what I'm thankful for.
When did you stop trying to fix things?
Oh, I think when the light went off, when the aha moment came in, and you realized you can't fix it, that these people aren't going to change, that they're totally oblivious to everybody else's feelings. They feel superior. They feel entitled. They feel that you're never going to measure up to their level of whatever they're putting themselves at. And they take glee and pride in making others feel bad. And when you understand that's their situation, you just step aside and let them have their... And then, of course, they try to bring you back in, and they don't understand. And then as you confront them with reality, then all of a sudden it's the demean, devalue, and destroy, which, fine, go for it.
Right.
And it didn't matter to me because I already had a good life outside of that, and thankfully I don't need those people now. I think a lot of people who might still be dependent in some level of housing or finance or who knows? There might be some other siblings that they're trying to protect or something. That's a tougher situation, and I was in an advanced age where I didn't have that situation.
So you didn't have that many strings attached. It's not like you needed your inheritance necessarily, or there was nothing particularly that was so important to you that you couldn't step out of the system. Is that correct?
Right. And I see that as an advantage, and I'm thankful that I had that. But I do know that there are those who say it's not easy, and I understand. Because when I was younger, and I was still in that situation where I was dependent upon that system, that dysfunctional system, you're walking on eggshells, and you're taking it easy everywhere you go. And that's where I think I tried to become the peacekeeper and became hypervigilant, because you're always trying to put out fires before they start. You're always trying to intercede before things escalate. And unfortunately, you carry that over to everything in your life. You do it outside of that family. Now you're doing it at work. You're doing it in your sports leagues. You're doing it with your neighborhood. You're doing it in your new family with your new spouse. And you don't understand why you're doing it, but that's how you were programmed.
Well, while you were calling me back, I told the audience to please listen up, because you're an example of life after narcissistic abuse gone right. Okay. And so you and I know, and many people who've been watching me and other YouTubes and reading about it know that not only is it not enough that the parents die physically, that blueprint inside of the person that's been psycho-inherited, that's the thing that has to die.
Because, it does. I mean, it was 10 years after the death that I was still going through all the agony and all the problems, because the dysfunctional family continued on, and I didn't understand it. I think it was about 2017, 18 that I listened to one of your shows, and I was listening to other programs, and I had to, because I think a friend of mine was a counselor, and I was dealing with a legal matter on a feuding family situation, not me, but it was another family member and a neighbor, and it was a regular 𝗦𝗫𝗏𝗡 thing. And I said, I don't understand anything what's going on. And she said, read this, and it was the definition of an narcissist, or even higher, with sociopath, psychopath, that type of thing. And as I was reading through that definitions of all that, oh my God, there's my family. So I started identifying all the parts and pieces, and that's when I started studying this more. And I was listening to your show back in the day when you and Walt were on, and I had an aha moment, and I thought, whoa, this all makes sense to me now. And it was the light turning on that instantly relieved all my stress and all my pain, and I just wanted to learn more and more. And the more I learned, the more power I got back, the less I was affected by it. And I think that's the benefit of your program. A lot of programs keep you in counseling forever, and I think what you're trying to do is take you step by step through, baby steps up through the past, all the way through the chaos, and then understand where the exit door is, how you can get out of all that.
Yeah, I look at it as a pathway to healing that I've created that's really basically easy to follow. It's not an easy process by any means, but it makes logical sense, because what I'm trying to do is align people's logic and psychologic, because the psychologic is the one that's warped. The psychologic is the one that's responding to being in that double dungeon of darkness and having a cracked lens of perception. And we're trying to take this cracked lens of perception, heal it, so that you can see psychologically straight. And that's in essence what the mind map is doing, is straightening out the system gone wrong, releasing psychological poisons that are stored up in there for years and years, and maybe even multi-generations, because what we don't want to do is pass it on to the next generation. So, you know, the big takeaway here is that it's not enough that your family disappear on you. That's not going to do it, because it's an inside job. If you're still holding beliefs that you're worthless and you're unlovable and you're powerless and so on, we got to get in there, because no matter what you do out there to try to avoid narcissists or negotiate with your family or fix your family or make them better, it's only by straightening out your internal blueprint that's going to determine whether life after narcissistic abuse is a shifted life or a SHIT kind of life. It can go either way. And the more we don't learn and the more we stay in the dark, the more we are doomed to, unfortunately, repeat the past. And what do you think, in essence, you can tell people that you learned that was this kind of an aha moment or some kind of a new way of seeing things and boundary set that pretty much ensured that you not go back and reinfect yourself?
Well, in addition to learning what was happening around me and within the dysfunctional family, and to learn about those types of narcissistic people and their lack of empathy, their sense of entitlement, superiority, and how they actually take pleasure in causing pain and consternation in other people, I had to learn what my role in it was. Why was it that I was allowing it to happen?
Yeah.
What role did I play? And when I learned what role, and I think they do label family members in these families, like the lost child and the scapegoat and so on. If you figure out where did you fit in, and I saw where I fit in, and I saw what I was doing, and I thought, okay, I did that in reaction to my situation. I've removed myself from the situation. Why do I allow other people? Why do I react? And what happened was I learned not to react. I learned that I was free of reaction and that I could just live my life. And as those things happened around me, I'd say, doesn't involve me. It doesn't bother me. Those people are having their fun in their games, but I don't need to be a part of that. And when I learned that, that was my aha moment, was I didn't need to be a part of that. And it wasn't just leaving the bad people behind, because you're always going to run into these people at work. You're going to run into them at churches, wherever you go, neighborhoods.
Right.
But you have to identify them. And when I could quickly identify those situations happening and realizing that, hey, they have no power over me. Words are just words. And I'm perfectly free to be myself. And the other thing was, who was I? Now I had the freedom, and this was a new awakening, is I had to find out who I was and what I wanted out of life and what my strengths were. And that was an awakening. So it's the learning not to react, and then learning what your role was, and learning who you are, who you want to be, that you've never allowed to be because you weren't allowed to have a voice.
You know, you are speaking also to something that I'm more and more aware of, is that when you're the people pleaser trying to fix the system, you have a job, right? That's your mission statement. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to rescue people. I'm going to enlighten people. Okay. And so when you stop doing that, I would imagine that it's very disorienting, because then you're kind of out of a job. Like, okay, so that didn't work. That was a Sisyphus kind of exercise. And if any one of you remember the Greek myth about Sisyphus, he kept rolling that big, huge rock up the hill, and every time he would roll it up, it would roll back on him, and there was no progress being made. That's kind of like trying to fix the narcissistic family. You're just always pushing up against the grain. It's not making a dent in fixing things at all. On the contrary, it's just crushing you, rolling back on you. And so what was that feeling like when you knew that you had to shut down that process? And it, kind of like,
oh, it was like coming off of I would imagine it was coming off from a being like trying to break an addiction.
yeah, yeah,
You were always the first to want to raise your hand to help, and you were always the first to show up and the last to leave. And I even had people say that, and I took great pride in being that kind of person, but it was exhausting, and it was never always rewarding, because many times you would go out and completely exhaust yourself financially, with your time, with your family, whatever you were doing, and try to please others, and it was never appreciated. And that was a big letdown. You'd get that's where the anxious depression or the anger would come out, that nobody even appreciated what you were doing, or they would say, well, that wasn't that special, or that wasn't that good. And you were the only one that showed up to do all the work, and they didn't even care, And so when I realized that, and many times you volunteered and did things, people didn't even want you to. You were there helping, but they didn't even want you to be there. And when I finally woke up to that, and I was able to just relax, oh my gosh, that was a big awakening of, hey, what do you want to do? What would you like to do today? What would you like to work on? What are your interests? And there's a group that needs help down there, but that's their business. Let them handle it. Let's think about what you want to do. And that's been really, really good, to get your own life's affairs in order, and that's been a really good thing.
So I was just saying this in a therapy session today, as a matter of fact, that when you stop filling the cup of other people who have that deep hole in the soul and drain and vampire you, then you start turning attention toward filling your own cup. And that's when the real progress is made, because you're not wasting your energy. You're filling and fulfilling yourself. And it sounds like that's what you've been doing ever since. You're not wasting your time on people who are going to bleed you out. You're not wasting your time on people who are non-appreciative, and at the end of the day are going to demean, devalue, destroy, and discard you anyway. And so it's like you're now investing in the right investment.
The people that want to vampire off of you, they never go away from every angle of life. They're out there. And you just have to, and that's in a constant alertness. You have to be aware of it, but you can't be distressed over it too much. You have to, and I think that's a big thing that's happened more recently is I don't get triggered by a lot of anything. It's almost like you're observing it, and you can almost see it in a humorous fashion, because you see people trying to stir up something, but it doesn't go anywhere. It depends on who's doing it. Now, if I see someone falling for it and they're going to fall in the trap, I might pull them aside and say, hey, watch that person, and here's what they're doing. Because I do try to, and this is something that's a little bit disconcerting. I'm sure you find this out too. You try to help people to keep them out of those vampire traps by giving them the knowledge and awakening them. It's not always easy to do. It's some people don't want to. They're happy to be a victim and to continue on in their life, and that's sad. But eventually, you have to let go of those people too, because you just don't want to let them drag you down by trying to help everybody.
So you're 100% right. Yeah. Would I like everybody to learn this stuff? Of course. Do I want to have people live in a better world and play a better game of life? Of course. But, like you, I've learned that I can't force people. I can't convert people to this way of thinking. And sometimes you have to just let people break down so hard that they don't have anywhere to go but further down, or break through and try something different. And you can't talk people into this kind of thing. They have to be, in some sense, desperate for a new way of being and a new way of seeing. And you're right, logic doesn't always work. And so sometimes I myself am surprised, like, wow, you guys, I've been teaching this for over 10 years. How come everybody doesn't want to wake up and see it and stop the what the Freud? But yeah, some people don't. Some people will.
They're stuck in a pattern. They feel comfortable in that pattern.
Right.
And anything that takes them out of it is a threat to them, and they see it. They cover their ears and they cover their eyes, and I mean, they just don't want to. Don't talk to me about this stuff. I just don't want to, and they get all panicky about it. And you say, okay, just wanted to make you aware that you can change things if you want to.
I wrote a song about, maybe a year ago or so. There's a piece of me that always wanted to write rock songs, and I'm definitely not great at singing or playing musical instruments, but I wrote this song called Dirty Fishbowl. And one day I'd like it to play out and have somebody do the right thing with it, like put a good voice to it and put good music to it. But the theme of Dirty Fishbowl is that we're all swimming in this dirty fishbowl and we are in muddy waters, but we don't want anybody to change the water because we're used to it. So the chorus line is, I'm used to it, don't bother me. Don't point out the dirty water. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze, maybe because I'm talking about polluted waters or something. But I think you get the theme that we're in this dirty fishbowl. We don't want it disrupted. It's our home. Don't bother me. Just let me swim around it. Let me be free. It's just that it's not free. It's not free because we're inhaling all the toxicity. So you're right. People, that's why panel 6, break down, break through. Oftentimes people come to see me when they're breaking down. And, that's a serious place to be in life. You're getting a divorce, or your health is caving in on you, or you're being fired, or you're so depressed and suicidal, or you're so angry that you can't live in your own skin. And I think that's the system's way of alarming you that the system has come to a dead halt. There's no more leeway. When you're in breakdown, there's no place to go. And that's why they call bottoming out in the alcoholic community. You bottom out because you're at the bottom. You're either on your way to the hospital, or you've now become homeless and nobody wants to talk to you. That's the bottom out. And everybody has to either be proactive and intercept the big bottom out and maybe come see me when they're in chaos, okay? Or even better, use the mind map to prevent catastrophe. But people don't use the mind map usually to prevent catastrophe. I don't get many people coming and saying, I just want to have a really great life, and I do have a great life. I just want to make sure that nothing goes off track, and so help me make sure I keep things on track. That's not usually why people come to see me. They come to see me because they are breaking down. We don't have to wait for that. And
no, I think too, people that think they have a great life really tell themselves that. But if they are at any point in their relationships having to walk around on eggshells, having to change their viewpoints or their thoughts on matters when discussions are held to keep the peace, or there's inner stresses and unspoken words and hidden glances and everybody, be quiet, such and such is coming home, let's make sure that they don't get upset. If you're experiencing that, you don't have a great life. Don't kid yourself. That's not. And what I'm saying is that I bought your book and I was reading it, and I thought, okay, how do I apply it? And every paragraph I'd say, okay, that's this person, and I'd write that guy's name on the side, and that's this person. And I have that book written. I wrote down so many places. I ran out of blank spaces on the book to write the connections on every paragraph. And then, of course, my name was all over the book too. But it helped me understand what was going on. And so even though you might think you have a great life, maybe your image is out there. And, of course, that's the other thing of a dysfunctional family. We were a big image family. You know, you don't want to air any of that out in public. You're at your best, you know, top of the class, the best-looking yard in the neighborhood, that kind of stuff, you know. Everybody wants to be better than everybody else, but that's not always happiness. That's not being genuine and real and authentic. It's stressful in its own right just to do that phony BS and not just sit down and get to know people as people.
So you're saying the great life that on the surface appears as if it's a great life, underneath it all may not be a great life if you're walking on eggshells and doing all this people pleasing and PR for yourself to keep the image going. That's not a great life. It's because it's not authentic.
I see people living that life of, you know, they've got the best car and the best boat, and they've got the best house, and they've got the best clothes, and they go to the best clubs, and they eat at the nicest restaurants. And are you happy? You know, I mean, really, you know, they're on a treadmill trying to prove to themselves they're happy, but they're not happy. And I see people with nothing who are totally and completely authentic with themselves and in full joy and at peace, and have wonderful conversations with their loved ones and share moments that'll never require anything as far as impressing anybody. And to me, that's what I've discovered is happiness, and it's calmness, and it's just relaxation. And there's so much out there to enjoy. What a rich life it is without all of the it is. It's a really very rich life without having to be rich. And I think that's the falseness in a lot of our society is that it takes being rich to be happy. It doesn't. If you can find who you are authentically and not fall into the trap of trying to please others and trying to impress others, you're not going to ever be happy, because you'll never, ever succeed. And there's too much competition, and it's all wasted time and effort.
And you have such a good point that a rich life full of objects, I mean, that's nice. I like a nice home. I like a nice car. I like nice things. It's just that a rich life doesn't necessarily mean a meaningful life. Okay. And so for me, there's nothing richer than a meaningful life where I get to have impact on people's lives, whoever wants to be impacted by what I have to teach. You know, I'm in a position to do that. And to me, that's very, very meaningful. Or just to spend time with my family and my grandchildren and connect with them, or connect with my animals, or whatever I'm doing that gives meaning, connectivity, opening my heart, creating more intimacy. I don't think we've been really educated on the value of that, because we've been swayed to think that a good life is a rich life full of objects that are fancy and rich looking. Those are nice. It's just that doesn't give you meaning, and without meaning, it's empty.
And the other thing is that people, and it's easy enough to approach an older person who's been on that treadmill of chasing success and trying to put that false public image out there. And you read about it all the time. The old wealthy individual who dies alone with no family, no friends, and no happiness.
Yeah.
And they look back and they were unhappy their whole life. They never found what they were looking for. And then there's the person that didn't have anything, and they are surrounded by family and friends and love right up to the very end of their days. And people don't realize how short life is. It just is short. And once you get off that treadmill of trying to impress others and to be something you're not, you'll start slowing life down, and you'll start smelling the roses and the coffee and seeing the sunsets and listening to the rushing waters and the streams and the waterfalls and taking some hikes and seeing nature. It just is an awakening that you don't get when you're playing a false image in a false image family and a dysfunctional family, because they don't want that. They don't want realism. They don't want authentic people around them, because it threatens them. They don't know how to handle authentic people.
Well, again, I talk about power and control versus love and intimacy. It's easy to power and control over things, right? If you don't have connection, then things might, to a certain degree, act as if they're filling a hole in your soul. It's just that they're really not. And it's apples and oranges. So your beautiful things are beautiful things. Nothing wrong with beautiful things. It's just that don't expect your things to connect you. Don't expect your things to fulfill you unless you're sharing your things with other human beings. If you've got a nice home and you're sitting there without inviting people into your home, well, what's that for? Or if you've got people in your life that are vying for attention and competition, and you're trying to outdo them or be part of them, and you're running that game of life of trying to connect with people who are not able to connect, well, what's that good for? So I think we need to talk more about having a rich, meaningful life, a life where we create connections with
authenticity,
beings, right? That are, panel 7, that's my dream. Panel 7, synergy. 1 + 1 is greater than 3. Having conversations that are generative, being with people who are adding to your life, whether they're adding to your health or your intellectual development or your spiritual development or whatever it is. That that's where the true light is that we can't create light just in and of our own circle. We are wired to connect. We're interconnected, and that's why it's so important to pick people into your life who are true growth partners. And it sounds like you've done that.
There was an analogy one time I heard at a seminar. A guy said, just imagine it's your last day on Earth. You're in a hospital bed. You've been told that you're probably going to not make the end of the day.
Yeah.
And he says, what are your thoughts going to be? Gee, I wish I'd have spent more hours at the office. Gee, I wish I'd have bought the nicer car I was looking at, or the bigger house, or I should have, invested my money more wisely. Or are you going to say, gee, I wish I'd have maybe made more friends. Maybe I wish I'd have spent more time with my kids, or I would spend more time with my wife.
Yes.
And had people here who really meant a lot to me. I think that really puts it right into perspective right there.
Very, very much so. And that's accessible to everybody. So people don't have to sit there and say, when I have more money, or when I have more, whatever it is. It could be now. When you have more connection to people, when you learn to open your heart to the right kind of people, when you're able to take pleasure in bringing meaning to another human being's life, and not just people please somebody who's going to suck you dry, but somebody that's truly going to receive what you have to offer, and vice versa, that you're able to take what they have to offer and appreciate it. That's, I think, that's when people are going to get it, that this is totally in their hands right now. There's nothing to wait for. So if you're sitting there thinking, I don't have enough, I don't this enough, that enough, well, okay, so then put your energy into the meaningful parts of your life, your children, the nature around you, your family, your pets. I'm very connected with my dogs. People know how I'm such a big dog lover. Anything that's going to really open your heart and give meaning to your life is where I'd like to see the human race invest themselves. That would be very refreshing.
And if you can, learn more about this subject and learn more about yourself, and then help others who are struggling.
Yes.
I think that's the thing that I feel good about on these phone calls, is that I feel like if anybody's listening and they can get something out of this, I hope they do, because I certainly know I've suffered many, many years.
I know. And you know, you're on the other side of it. And I really love when you call in, because people need to hear that there's somebody out there, you and others, who have decided to pull out of the system, make meaning in their lives, and not identify with the old system gone wrong, but rather identify it, and then shift their whole way of seeing themselves in the world in a direction of what I came to in the conversation about meaning, and having a life full of interconnection, and people that are synergistic with who you are and where you're going. Anything else?
I think you can do it in baby steps. I think it's scary. And like I said, if you're dependent, or you're in a situation of dependency, and you're under the thumb of the people that are tormenting you, but start by learning who you are, learning who they are, and learning this dysfunctional family situation. Learn all the roles that everybody are playing, so you can identify it.
And put those little names in the book. And by the way, everyone can have a free copy of my PDF. And if you want to put your little names and identify the players in your life, print it out, or easier yet, get a copy off of Amazon and mark it up and write all over it, and refer back to it and see where you're at a year from now. But you've done it, Dale, and people could do it in small gradients. It's not going to happen overnight. But back full circle to life after narcissistic abuse. Hopefully it's a life that you are now you're now more aware. You've paradigm shifted into seeing things much more clearly, and that you're further and further away from repeating the past and completing those horrible blueprints that you psycho-inherited. That's the stuff that needs to die.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I just wanted to call, and the subject matter was life after, and life after is the good side. You want to get to the good side of it.
Absolutely.
It's after it's over,
Yes.
And the only way you can get it over is to take those baby steps and first learn who you are and what role you play and what your family's roles are. And like you said, get the book. That's what I did. I bought the book on Amazon, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it, and I kept reading every paragraph. I go, well, there's a new situation. I forgot about this, and I write that down. But that thing is, I must have 5,000 words in that thing. So.
Wow. I'd love to see a copy of what you've written. You got me very curious, I want you to know. I thank you for calling in. I really appreciate your insights and being a role model, because people just have to have role models. Like anything in life, we need to know that there are people out there who have gone through this horrific abuse, narcissistic families, and finally have pulled out, and they've stopped doing what they're doing, and they're not engaging in toxic systems any longer. So I thank you for calling in, and time to time.
We'll look forward to listening on the side.
Thank you so much, Dale.
Thank you.
Take care. Are there any quick questions in the waiting room? Happy to answer one or so.
There is a question. JB says, sure, I have a question. You don't know my story, but I literally trust no one 100% anymore. Is this repairable?
Yeah. Okay, so look, when your parents fail you, profoundly fail you, and use you and use your vulnerabilities to benefit themselves and not you, trust is broken. And if think about it this way, and I say this in the book, so please download a free copy, get it off of Amazon, whatever works for you. I agree with Dale. It's always nice to have a hard copy because you could write in there and highlight things and go back over it. The thing is that parents set the bar, and if they've broken trust, well, then why would you trust somebody else? Because your parents are supposed to be the people to have your back. They're supposed to be the people that you trust. They're supposed to be the gods in your world, the highest level of your world. And if they're not it, then who are you going to put in that position? So there goes everyone else. And through the therapy, you can start having insight into that and not take that low bar of who your parents were to you and project that onto the world. So for the person who asked that question, please feel free to check in, call me, and we can take that really, really low bar and raise the bar so that you're not living in this untrustworthy world, because that's not your fault and you did not create that. You were not the cause of breaking trust. Okay? And I'll let you ponder who was the cause. And again, I don't say the word fault because our parents were broken too and their parents were broken too, but somebody's got to be the first to break the multi-generational cycle of childhood wounds and narcissistic abuse. So let that be you, okay? Thank you, everybody, for calling. Dale, for calling in and your comments and questions, and I'll see you next week. Good night, everyone.